So, projectile motion. A projectile is an object given initial velocity and launched through a gravitational field. Technically, the effect of air resistance should be negligible, but people are a little careless with that terminology. We can neglect air resistance when any of the following is true. The length of the trajectory is very short, or the time of flight is very short. The initial velocity is relatively low, or the object is streamlined, meaning its shape is aerodynamic. For a projectile, the acceleration is always known, because the projectile is in free fall, so the acceleration is g in the minus y hat direction, or g downward. What you don't want to get in the habit of saying is that the acceleration is minus g. G is a scalar, and the acceleration is a vector. It can't be minus g, not in a two-dimensional context where the vector information is important. There are two profound implications of this thing. One, the vertical acceleration has magnitude of g, just as if we had dropped the object, so it looks like we dropped the object. And two, the horizontal acceleration is 0, and so the horizontal component of velocity is constant. This allows us to simplify the kinematic equations. Let's assume the projectile is launched from a height h above the ground at a point where x equals 0 and y equals h. It has a barrel speed v0 directed at a launch angle of theta above the horizontal. We get the picture as shown. And then all of our equations become, when we substitute things in, the following. Notice how remarkably redundant a lot of these equations are, because these two are, of course, the same equation. And these two are the same equation. And this is really that same equation. So you're left with really only two horizontal equations, one of which is that Vx is V0 cos theta, which is true but uninteresting. And the other is that x is just that times the time. Life's very simple here. It's moving at constant velocity horizontally. But things get more complicated and look more traditionally like kinematic equations over on the y side, where we can't really do any of those things. One of the weird implications here is that tossing an object horizontally is almost the same as dropping it without the velocity, because the x motion has just dropped out. It's not in any of our y motions. So no matter what the value of Vx0 is, it doesn't really impact this. This means that something which is fired to the side will land at the same time as something which is simply dropped. This will be demonstrated in this little video where the person here has an apparatus where when he pulls the trigger, one ball is pushed out by a bar, but the other ball is simply dropped over a gaping chasm with that bar.
Go.
Ready?
Go. We'll go into slow-mo in a sec.
2.
You can see because of the flicker on the projector, it's in slow motion. And you can see they hit at the same time. So this will be a relatively counterintuitive thing that we can use a lot, and we will. My personal shorthand for a particular problem where people run off a cliff or projectiles fired purely horizontally is cliff running problems, just to be sort of evocative in the name. Because v0y equals 0, this is almost the same as an object that's simply dropped. For instance, the vertical speed will be the same for two objects, such as we just saw. Therefore, the total time to fall will be the same, since that depends only on the vertical motion. Alright, rock A is dropped from the top of a cliff at the same instant that rock B is thrown horizontally away from the cliff. The rocks are identical. A student draws the following graphs to describe part of the motion of the rocks using a coordinate system in which the positive vertical direction is up and the positive horizontal direction is away from the cliff. So we're using an axis and origin that looks something like plus y there and plus x here. The origin of the coordinate system is the point where the rocks are released from. So, sorry, light a little bit there. Should draw it higher. And maybe not in black. So let's pick a different color. What we have is plus y that way, plus x that way. So what, if anything, is wrong with these graphs of the motion of three rocks? If something's wrong, identify it and explain how to correct it. If the graphs are correct, explain how you know. Take a second or two, pause the video, and then come back and we'll talk about it. So the first thing is, let's start tackling these things. We have rock A's horizontal velocity, but rock A is simply dropped, so it should have 0 horizontal velocity. So it should do that. It should start at rest horizontally, and it should not change because there is no horizontal acceleration. So that should be like that. And rock A is simply dropped, so it should start off with initial vertical velocity of 0. and then it should slope downward constantly. So probably we'll take that slope as okay, but it should have been like that, because it starts at 0, 0, and then remains at 0 for x and accelerates negatively or downwardly for y. So not so good on rock A. For rock B, it should start with some horizontal velocity, and then it should hold that forever because there's no horizontal acceleration. And it should start with no initial velocity in the vertical because it was thrown purely horizontally, and then that should slope down. So this one is actually okay. So of the 4 panels, only one of them was actually correct. The rifles in the figures are being fired horizontally, straight outward off the platforms, and the bullets fired from the rifles are all identical, but the rifles propel the bullets at different speeds. The speed of each bullet and the height of each platform are given, and all of the bullets miss their targets, that's sad, and hit the ground. Rank the time it takes the bullets to hit the ground. And what we come back to here is that the horizontal velocity is entirely irrelevant for this. Once again, it's just like that we saw in the video a couple of slides ago. The horizontal velocity makes no impact on how long it takes in the air. The only thing, therefore, that will count, that will matter, is we'll have to remember that delta y will be 1/2 minus g delta t squared, so that the greater the height, the greater the delta t. All right, so we want the higher thing will go, we'll take the longest, that would be B and C. So we'll have B and C will take the same amount of time. And then next there will be D, and then there would be A. So something like this, because all that matters is the height. Even though A is moving faster, like much faster than everybody else, doesn't matter. It's going to go a very long distance, but it's going to be in the air for a very short time, comparatively. A toy truck is launched horizontally from a table of height h. In case A, the toy truck leaves the table with speed v. In case B, the toy truck leaves the table with speed 2v. A student comparing the time trucks are in the air in these two cases state, the faster you go, the less time it takes to get there. The truck in case A will be in the air longer. And what, if anything, is wrong with this statement? If something's wrong, identify and explain how to correct it. If the statement's correct, explain how you know. So the student is incorrect because the time of flight is going to depend only on the height, and the heights are equal. So we know that the time of flight will be equal. Is it true the faster you go, the less time it takes to get somewhere? Only if the distances are the same. In general, you can't say that. Right? The faster you go, if you're saying I'm going at 500 miles an hour and I'm driving to LA, or I'm going at 50 miles an hour but I'm driving to Oklahoma City, then you're going to reach Oklahoma City first, even though you're going much faster in the trip to California. And the reason is, of course, that you just have so much more distance to cover that it overwhelms the fact that you're covering it quickly. So that's where the student went wrong on that one. If you want to look at this, the case B truck will travel a greater physical distance. You'll have to add up all the different path lengths along the arc it takes. It travels, right? They travel something like this, and A will go of a lesser arc, but that will compensate so they take exactly the same time. Alice runs horizontally off her diving board 5 meters above a pool. The same moment she leaves the board, Bob simply drops from it into the same pool. Who hits the water first? Who hits the water moving faster? So they hit at the same time because they're falling from the same height and she's running horizontally. They gain the same amount of vertical speed. Their vertical velocity is the same when they hit because, again, it doesn't matter. But Bob is merely doing this while Alice is doing this plus her original over, which means that she's really doing something like this, which is automatically longer than Bob, since Bob's actual velocity is a component, right? This is, oops. This is Bob's initial component. Oops, don't know where the text came from. Anyway, sorry, there's an extra text box there. Can we just move out of the way? Maybe not. Anyway, Bob's velocity is just a component of Alice's velocity. She has another component, and the hypotenuse is always longer than any side. Also, at the same moment that Alice runs off the board, Charlene runs off a board 10 meters above the pool. So she's twice as high, but only 1/2 the speed. So now, new picture down here, we have Alice's, And then we have Charlene's. Oops. So here's Alice running. And here's Charlene running. And Charlene is twice as high, but has only 1/2 as much. So if we say that Alice is at h, moving at speed v, then Charlene is at 2h, but moving at only half v. Which of the following statements is true? Alice's range is exactly twice of Charlene's. Alice's range is more than Charlene's, but less than twice as much. They have the same range. Alice's range is less than Charlene's, but not by as much as a factor of 1/2. Or Alice's range is exactly 1/2 of Charlene's. Here, range is how far does the person in question travel before hitting the water. So here's the water, and Alice is going to do something like this, and without prejudicing the picture any, so don't take from this, but Charlene's going to do that. And we want to know, is that horizontal distance the same? Well, Charlene falls for not twice Alice's time, but only square root of 2 of Alice's time. Why isn't it twice Alice's time? Well, we know that when, let's get to a new screen. I'm going to redraw that situation real quickly so we can talk about it. Here's Alice and Charlene's diving boards above this water, such that, I'm going to change Alice's color to green. Alice running off at some speed v at a height h, and Charlene running off at 2h, but only 1/2 v. And we want to know, why does it turn out that Charlene is not in the air for twice the length? And it's pretty easy. If we imagine we had just dropped them, then Alice will hit the water in some time, and she'll have some speed, which we might call v Alice. And Charlene will have fallen during that time to the same height and have a downward speed, which is also v Alice. But she still has to keep going. She still has this distance to cover. That's the distance h, but right? So you might think, well, she picks up another VA, which she does, and she take another time t, but that's not true. All right, she picks up, actually, I didn't pick up another VA either. That's actually a lie. She doesn't take the same time because now she's moving through this interval and she's already at motion. She's already in motion. So it's not like she had just been dropped from Alice's height at that point. She's already moving, so she'll take less time to cover the same distance. It will turn out, of course, that the velocity is proportional to the square root of the height. And so by doubling Alice's height, she picks up root 2 in terms of velocity. And of course, it also turns out that the time is proportional to root the height, which is not surprising. So it takes root 2 as long, not twice as long, but only about 40% longer for her to reach it. Since she's moving half the speed and doesn't go for quite the time, she actually executes a smaller path. If Alice does this, then Charlene will actually do something like that. All right, if the launch angle is not 0 degrees, the equations are moderately more complicated, but it's not too bad. For instance, Dexter happens to know he can kick a soccer ball at 25 meters per second relative to his foot. He is standing at 12 meters away from a ledge that is 3.1 meters tall. If he kicks the ball at an angle of 22 degrees, A, is the ball rising or falling, it reaches the location of the ledge, and B, can he get the ball on or over the ledge? As always, the first thing we do is draw a picture. So that's the distance to the ledge. Here's the ledge of height 3. Don't take anything from my picture. It might be a wrong picture, but the ball's kicked up, and it has some velocity and some in the vertical and horizontal directions. I chose to pretend that it was still rising because that way everybody looks positive. If I solve for it and one of them and the Vy is negative, then it's falling. All right, to know what happens when the ball reaches the ledge, we need to know how long it takes to get there. So we have a lot of position information and velocity information. We know the horizontal values of the initial and final position, and we know the constant horizontal velocity. So we can say that the horizontal position at any time is v0 times cosine of the angle times t. And so at the time when the position is 12 meters, we get this equation. So the time turns out to be a little over 0.5 seconds. I'm carrying an extra sig fig because, we're still in the middle calculations. And then we'll know if it's rising or falling. So now we're asking about the vertical velocity, because a rising thing has a positive vertical velocity and a falling thing has a negative vertical velocity. But we can find the vertical velocity because we know that the vertical velocity at any time is the starting value minus gt. We put in the known velocities and angles and now the known time, and we find that v1y is 4.28 meters per second, so the ball is still rising. Part B, remember, was can he clear the ledge? So now we have to just know, has he reached the height of the ledge or more at the point that the ball has reached 12 meters? But that's pretty easy. We're just looking for the vertical position. So we just plug it in. Start at 0. It picks up this bit from its initial velocity, but it loses this bit from gravity, and we get 3.5 meters. And since this is greater than the height of the ledge, the ball clears the ledge, although not by too much, somewhat over a foot. This is one of those cases where I say it's important to go back and reread the question, because we go back and we say, can the ball get on or over the ledge? And answering y1 equals 3.5 meters is not an answer to that question. You have to then say he does actually clear the ledge. All right. In the AP world, you would not get full credit for just getting this height and stopping. You have to do the interpretation in terms of what they asked. All right, our next thing is going to be some general features of projectile motion that make them useful and easy in problem solving.